Red hand mirror. My hometown is in a rural area surrounded by a basin, but the population is reasonably large, so there are large shopping malls and large supermarkets lining the streets. Perhaps because of the nature of the area, new convenience stores opened and then collapsed, and just when I thought they had collapsed, another convenience store opened, and so the competition was very hectic. There were only one or two recycle stores in the city, and none within easy distance for local students to visit, so my friend Akari and I decided to try one out and headed there on a weekend. The two-story store was wider than a convenience store and smaller than a supermarket. The aisles are as narrow as Don Quixote, but everywhere you turn you are surrounded by exhibits, like a jewel box full of bargains, and my eyes were sparkled by the variety of items. You have everything. Wow. Oh, they have clothes, too. Second-hand clothes? Akari ran toward the corner where fashion items were displayed. The beautiful outerwear and top and bottom sets of clothes were hung on the hanger racks, and innerwear was piled up in baskets like a wagon sale. Bags and other accessories were also there, but the brand-name items were displayed in glass cases, and Akari groaned when she saw the price tags. As I was browsing the exhibits at random, trying to find something I wanted, I suddenly noticed a small item in the general merchandise section that stood out to me and stopped. Isn't this pretty? I picked up a compact hand mirror with an eye-catching red plating. It had a slightly childish design, with a circular body larger than my palm and a foldable handle, but I thought the cat ear-like protrusions decorating the mirror's edge were very cute. A little childish, don't you think? Akari is right, but for some reason I liked this hand mirror so much that I ended up buying it. The price was reasonable, too, at about 1,000 yen. After that, both Akari and I spent about 2 hours shopping around the store, buying some clothes with our small allowance and choosing stuffed animals and cushions to put by our beds. However, it was a recycle store that had just opened. The narrow aisles were jammed with customers who kept coming in and out of the store, and eventually we had to leave early because the heat was so intense. In truth, there were still some areas we had not yet looked around, but that was the end of today's accomplishments, so we disbanded. After returning home, I began sorting through the day's loot, laying it out on the floor. I put the washable items in the laundry basket, and I sorted out the stuffed animals to dry in the shade tomorrow after spraying them with Febreze, muttering to myself that I had bought a lot of stuff at a pretty low price. This is the best one after all. I opened the folded handle and looked at my face in the mirror to check the feel of the product. I combed my hair with a hand comb because my bangs were slightly sticking to my face due to the heat in the store, checked my profile, and finally turned to the front to check my smile. As I did so, I noticed the cat's ears on the edge of the mirror, which made my mouth relax, but when I looked at the hand mirror in a bright place, I noticed that there was not a scratch on it. The previous owner must have taken very good care of it, because the handle and the back of the mirror are so shiny and clean that you can almost hear it squeak if you run your fingertips over them. I wondered why they had sold it, but then I thought that they had sold it because it simply didn't suit their taste or because they had grown out of it, so I folded up the hand mirror and put it on my desk. I folded up the hand mirror and put it on my desk. I thought that the previous owner must have been in elementary or junior high school and gave up the childish hand mirror. In the middle of the night, after I finished my homework, I took a bath, watched my favorite program in the living room, and then went back to my room to brush my teeth while chatting with my friends on one hand and on the other. Time flew by as Akari and I talked about our trophies on the line, and before I knew it, it was past midnight, and I decided to send her a good night stamp and go to bed. When the lights went out, the hand mirror that I had left on my desk caught my eye with its everlasting luminescence. I picked up the mirror, enjoying the unevenness of the cat's ears with my fingertips, opened the handle, and peered into the dimly lit room to see my face covered in something pitch black. Wow. I threw the hand mirror on the bed and froze for a moment staring at it, puzzled by the funny look on my face that I had just seen in the mirror. Then I picked up the mirror to check again, and after a pause, I looked into the mirror, and this time I could clearly see the face of a woman I did not know and her long black hair covering it, rather than my face. What the hell? I felt more creepy than scary, so I quickly turned on the light and checked the mirror again. But what I saw in the mirror was my familiar face, with a scowl on my face, not the woman who looked like she had a bangs hanging down from her head earlier. Was it an optical illusion because it was dark? I turned off the light again, put the mirror in a drawer, and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I found the mirror on my desk, which I had put in the drawer for some reason. I immediately asked my mother if she had gone into my room, but she simply said, "I don't know," and dismissed me with the annoyance that I should finish breakfast and go to school early. That day, I told Akari, who was having lunch with me, about the hand mirror. She laughed at me as if I were a stranger. Well, it's someone else's problem, but Akari continues, if I hold it up on video, it'll get buzzed. And he's just having fun with it and won't take me up on it, even though I'm really creeped out. It was nothing harmful, and it was probably just a mistake on my part, but I couldn't help but think that there was something wrong with the mirror, and I was so concerned about it while I was at school that I couldn't get any study done. That night, I took the mirror out of my desk drawer again and looked into it with my face turned away and my eyes fixed on the mirror, as if I was looking at something scary. Naturally, there was only my profile reflected in the mirror in a strange position, but there was no woman in the mirror as there had been last night. I wondered if I had really misjudged it. As I let the hand mirror spin around in my hand and play with it, my hand went crazy and I dropped it on the floor. Then, with a thud, the edge of the mirror made contact with the floor, and the mirror part inside came off, and the disc and body separated. Oh, no. For a moment, I thought I had broken it, so I kneeled down on the floor and picked up the disc, and then I felt something strange on the back side, so I fearfully turned it over. Ugh. To my surprise, the backside was covered with handprints that looked like bloodstains, and the reddish-black fingerprints were illuminated by the room light. The sheer eeriness of the object caused me to let out an involuntary, raised scream, but suddenly I became more concerned about the body with the handle, so I put down the disc and picked up the body, which remained face down. After swallowing hard, I slowly turned the mirrorless hand mirror upside down and found several red handbills pasted on top of each other. The reddish-black fingerprints on the back of the mirror, and the gaffitas pasted on the inside of the body where the mirror had been removed, were all over the mirror. Witnessing this absurd reality, the hand mirror slipped out of my palm and rolled on the floor with a clatter. After a moment, I huffed and picked up the disc and framed it into the body. I decided to pretend I didn't see it for the time being and decided to take it out to the garbage tomorrow, so I just slammed it into a drawer. It must have been about 3 hours after I got into the futon, half escaping from reality. I woke up with my eyes bright and staring up at the dark ceiling. Looking at the clock with its fluorescent-colored face, I saw that it was just after 3 a.m. I was still conscious, but I could tell that my consciousness was clear. However, although my consciousness is clear, my body does not move at all. In fact, when I tried to speak, I could not produce any sound as if my pharynx was blocked. I struggled to move my body somehow. I noticed that I could often hear a slight noise, like a crunching sound. I turned my attention back to the desk, where I was lying on my back, and found that the sound was coming from my bedside table. Dozens of minutes of listening to the strange sounds playing incessantly in the corners of my consciousness. There was a huge sound like a chair being pulled with great force. My alertness was instantly raised when I heard the sound. The desk was obviously shaking, but since I could not move my head, I could only ask God to hurry up and finish with all my heart. However, as if to prove that my wish had not reached God, I felt a drawer open with a crack. Then a cold, unpleasant sensation, hard to describe in words, fell on my pillow like the cold air that leaks out when you open a refrigerator, and I began to hear a thin female breath, ha, ha. I tried my best to meditate, thinking, "Oh, this is really bad," but the unpleasant sensation gradually came closer and closer to my bedside. Then, just as the woman's breath was about to reach my ear, somehow the unpleasant feeling that had been close at hand vanished without the slightest sign of it. At the same time, my body became free, and I kicked off the futon and got up, turning my body toward the desk with a shaking voice. However, the drawers of the desk were not open, and I could not see any change in the room illuminated by the night light. To be sure, I looked in the drawer, but the hand mirror was indeed in the drawer in a folded state. I was convinced that I had not only been terrified by the image of the woman I had seen when I looked into my hand mirror last night, but that I had also seen such a thing. I was not exactly out of the loop, but when I realized that I was hallucinating because of my own weakness of mind, I felt a little less anxious and returned to bed. I pulled the covers over my head and stretched out my eyelids. Just as I was about to doze off and lose consciousness, I felt a cold texture covering my face, and the cold air gushed through my skin and down my back. I immediately opened my eyes to see the outline of what must have been part of a palm, and when I tried to scream, my face was forcefully yanked to the side with a yelp. I opened my eyes and saw the face of the woman I had seen in the hand mirror last night, with her bangs hanging down, and her mouth, which had been slightly open, was wide open. I must have passed out at that moment, because when I came to, it was long past morning and I learned that there is no time to scream when you are really scared. I still don't know if it was a dream or reality, but when I checked my drawer early in the morning, for some reason the mirror part of the hand mirror was slightly floating out of the frame, and a part of the sacred card was visible. And it may be some kind of cause and effect that this happened to be a non-burnable trash day. However, I could not throw away the hand mirror as if I was afraid of something like a curse, so I sold it to a recycle store on that day. At that time, I thought that if the clerk noticed that the mirror part of the hand mirror came off and found the talisman or bloodstains inside, he would refuse to sell it to me, so I glued it firmly in place before selling it. After I sold the mirror, I no longer had that horrifying experience, but the last time I stopped by a recycle store, I saw that the hand mirror I sold was no longer on display, so someone must have purchased it. I hope nothing happened to the buyer, but I was relieved because I was certain that it had completely left my possession. However, I am still wondering what happened to the real owner of that hand mirror. This concludes this story. Thank you for listening to the end.